in the hardcore South are complying with that civil rights bill, particularly the public accommodation section, with amazing good sense and reasonableness. This reveals that we are making some strides. And so, to put it figuratively in biblical language, we've broken loose from the Egypt of slavery. We have moved through the wilderness of legal segregation, and now we stand on the border of the promised land of integration. And I'm absolutely convinced that the system of segregation is on its deathbed today, and the only thing uncertain about it is how costly the segregationists will make the funeral. We've come a long, long way since 1896. Now this would be a wonderful place for me to end my speech. First, it would mean making a relatively short speech, and that would be a magnificent accomplishment for a Baptist preacher. Secondly, it would mean that the problem is about solved, and it would be a marvelous thing if speakers all over our country could talk about this problem in terms of a problem that once existed but that no longer has existence. But if I stop at this point, I will merely be stating a fact and not telling the truth. You see, a fact is merely the absence of contradiction, but truth is the presence of coherence. Truth is the relatedness of facts. Now, it's a fact that we've come a long, long way, but it isn't the whole truth. And I'm afraid if I stop at this point, I will leave you the victims of a dangerous optimism. If I stop at this point, I may send you away the victims of an illusion wrapped in superficiality. So in order to tell the truth, it is necessary to move on and say, not only we've come a long, long way, but we have a long, long way to go before the problem of racial injustice is solved. I don't think I have to stay on this point too long. We need only turn on our televisions and open our newspapers and look around in our communities. We know that no section of our country can boast of clean hands in the area of brotherhood. I mentioned the fact that lynchings have about ceased. We must see the other side. Brutal murders are still taking place. Think of the 3 civil rights workers murdered in Mississippi last summer. Nothing has been done about it. In the state of Alabama, under the administration of Governor George Wallace, exactly 10 Negroes and their white supporters have been brutally murdered. Nobody has been convicted for a single murder. Churches are being burned and bombed. And in Mississippi, it seems now that they have a new motto, not attend the church of your choice, but burn the church of your choice. Oh, how tragic this is. All of this reminds us that injustice still stalks the land. Tragic the lawlessness we find in so many of its dimensions. Alabama is still a state. Mississippi is still a state. Louisiana, and I could go right on, where murder is a sort of favorite pastime. Reign of terror plans continues its ugly activity. All of this comes to remind us we have a long, long way to go. I mentioned the fact that we had made some strides in the area of voter registration. We now have a little more than 2 million Negroes registered in the South. Now that looks fairly well, but when you think of the fact that there are still a little more than 10 million Negroes who still live in the South, about 6 million are of voting age, and only about 2 million registered, which means there are 4 million Negroes in the South who are not registered to vote. And it isn't only because of that lack of motivation. So many instances that Selma continues to remind us. Negroes cannot register and they cannot vote. All types of conniving methods are still being used. keep Negroes from becoming registered. Face intimidation when they go to the courthouse. They are harassed. They face economic reprisals. I was in Selma just last week, only to discover that a few more than 200 Negroes have been fired from their jobs simply because they went down to the courthouse to register and vote.
There is 1 minute left.
Most of them are heads of households. Think of the little children who will go hungry. Think of the wives and mothers who will go hungry.
Won the match.
Who will not have the basic necessities of life simply because they wanted to register and vote something that is sacred in our great nation and in our democratic government. This reminds us that we have a long, long way to go. And then the complex literature tests are still being given. The other day I studied the one they give in Alabama very thoroughly. I'm absolutely convinced that Chief Justice Warren would flunk it in the first minute of picking it up. Questions are so absurd on that and so ridiculous and so complicated that a person with a PhD in any field or a person with a law degree from the finest law schools of our nation could not answer them. And this is what we still face. And so this reveals that we still have a long, long way to go on the voting front. I mentioned economic justice, and I gave a big figure, $30 billion, as the figure that tells us about the annual income and buying power of the Negro. But when we look at the other side, it tells us that we still have a great deal of work to do. But that other side reminds us that 42% of the Negro families of our country still earn less than $2,000 a year, while just 17% of the white families earn less than $2,000 a year. 21% of the Negro families of our country still earn less than $1,000 a year, while just 5% of the white families earn less than $1,000 a year. 88% of the Negro families of our country still earn less than $5,000 a year, while just 58% of the white families earn less than $5,000 a year. This reveals to us that we have a long, long way to go. And another problem has come into being because of the social injustices and the neglect of the past. We have inherited a difficult problem in every major city of our country. The Negro has been denied educational opportunities in so many instances, been covered up in ghettos, crowded in overcrowded, woefully inadequate schools. And so he was denied the opportunity in many instances, denied the opportunity for apprenticeship training. And for this reason, we have been limited by and large to semi-skilled and unskilled labor. Now the force called automation and cybernation came into being. And these are the jobs that are passing away. It compounds the problem that the Negro confronts because he faces the double blow of outright discrimination in employment and the displacement of the sociological changes that are developing as a result of automation. Concerned society must do something about this. Massive public works programs, massive retraining programs has come into being in order to grapple with this problem. For when people are walking the streets hungry, and they have no job, and they see life as a long and desolate corridor with no exit sign, they become bitter. That is nothing more dangerous for any society than to develop a large segment of that society and leave them with the feeling that they have no stake in the society, that they have nothing to lose. These are the people who will not listen to the pleas of nonviolence. These are the people who will riot because they see no way out. And so the massive social problems that can result as a result of the economic problem must be dealt with. This reveals that we have a long, long way to go. Let me say that even though I said we had made great strides on the question of segregation, the problem there is not yet solved. Now, it may be true that, as I said, figuratively speaking, old man segregation is on his deathbed, but history has proven that social systems have a great last-minute breathing power, and the guardians of the status quo are always on hand with their oxygen tents to keep the old order alive. We have to face the fact that segregation is still with us. We still have it in its hardcore forms in some parts of the South. We still have it in its de facto expressions in almost every state and city of our union. But I'm absolutely convinced that if democracy is to live, segregation must die. Segregation is a cancer in the body politic which must be removed before our moral health can be realized. And so the great challenge facing America is to get rid of racial segregation in all of its dimensions. And this must be done not merely to meet the communist challenge, as important as this happens to be. It must be done not merely to have a good image in the world, and we want this image, and we must have it. It must be done not merely to appeal to Asian and African peoples. In the final analysis, racial injustice must be uprooted from American society because it is morally wrong. Segregation is evil, to use the words of the great Jewish philosopher Martin Buber, because it substitutes an I-it relationship for the I-thou relationship. To go back to the thinking of St. Thomas Aquinas, it is evil because it is based on human laws that out of harmony